Ninja Gaiden 4 on Steam Deck, so verified before it came out. Everything should be working as expected. And you might say, but Ninja Gaiden 2 Black, that one was basically unplayable, maybe 30 FPS, it was UE5. Well, this one is actually Platinum Games in-house engine, so it's not UE5, that's good to see. So seeing it verified makes me a little bit less uneasy, so let's hit resume and check what the options say. Alright, so after hitting resume, the default settings are 800p, the frame rate limit was at 30 fps, FSR on prioritized performance, that means 400p, which is disappointing, I would say. And all these options, also dynamic rest was enabled, all these options are grayed out, because there's something called Steam Deck mode. I love seeing this, and it says settings optimized for play on Steam Deck. Certain graphics options cannot be adjusted while Steam Deck mode is toggled on. So you can affect the settings on dynamic resolution, on FSR, all that, but basically there is custom settings. It doesn't seem to be these that are grayed out, because I changed some of them, then enabled Steam Deck mode, and they stay the same. So I'm not sure entirely what these entail. I'm pretty sure it's probably something like very low. But the resolution itself is basically 400p. So let's see how it goes with the default settings, and I want to thank Instant Gaming for sponsoring this video. Instant Gaming is a website to get cheaper games for PC, PlayStation, Xbox and Nintendo Switch with 24/7 support. Right now we got Battlefield 6 for $67.53 US, and also games that are not out yet, such as The Outer Worlds 2 Premium Edition that gives you 5 days early access. Unfortunately, the Steam keys for Ninja Gaiden 4 on PC are out of stock, so make sure to get notified by email so you can get the Steam version. Otherwise, you won't be able to play it on Steam Deck if you get the Microsoft Store version. We're giving one free game to one of you guys each month from Instant Gaming. Hit participate, follow myself and Instant Gaming in social media. So thanks again to Instant Gaming for sponsoring this video. Let's continue. Alright, so again, the default settings are 30 FPS, dynamic resolution, performance upscaling, and probably the very low preset. It looks very pixelated. You can probably notice it because I'm recording this from the capture card. On the smaller screen it's probably less obvious, but definitely this is not something I'll play the game at, especially locked to 30 FPS. As you can see, the GPU is at 65%, so I'm pretty sure we can do better. So first of all, let's see what it looks like with unlocked frame rates and no dynamic resolution. We unlock the frame rates and dynamic resolution, let's get rid of it. So we only have Steam Deck settings plus 400p. Okay, this looks significantly better and smoother. And we're into the 50s now, being chased by that helicopter. This is a cutscene, let's skip ahead. So yeah, I need to get a little bit more ahead in the story, but I gotta say, FSR, I tried it on my main PC, I tried it with DLSS, also on my main PC, and it looks horrible. On this game seems to be some old FSR2 solution. So in my opinion, this shouldn't be an option, it should be at least FSR3. So that's disappointing. I'll probably force upscaling with OptiScaler or something like that. I mean, it does the job, but it's pretty blurry, like this. Alright, so continuing a bit ahead in the city. Things that I'm noticing with the Steam Deck preset, texture quality is pretty sacrificed. Let's just say, very sacrificed, which makes sense. Makes sense because this game on PC used a lot of VRAM, crazy amounts of VRAM. So I'm not surprised that in that regard they sacrificed that on Steam Deck. You can notice this in the environment, although the textures increase the quality once you're getting close to them. It's like an LOD for texture quality. But I think it's passable on the smaller screen. The thing is, we're still on performance upscaling, that means 400p. Performance, I mean, I'm surprised I locked it to 30 FPS, considering I'm into the 60s with these settings right now. Some drops when doing those executions, but yeah, it's fine. At least so far. Would I do something differently? Yeah, I'll probably be sacrificing the frame rate a bit for higher resolutions, especially considering FSR looking so bad. being trying to be a little bit good with them. The FSR in this game looks horrible. That's all I can say about it. But the other sacrifices that are made with this is that screen space reflections are completely missing, ambient occlusion is completely missing, and well, that texture quality thing. Alright, welcome back, now in handheld mode, but I'll show you the default settings once again, with prioritized resolution, accepting, again, dynamic resolution, and the FPS cap that was 30, which I don't think is a good idea. And the Steam Deck mode, which doesn't allow us to change anything other than resolution. And on the smaller screen, I mean, between this and the low-ish preset that has reflections and ambient occlusion, this is like a 10 frame per second boost. So it's pretty significant when it comes to the performance improvement. The game is butter smooth in this mode. But again, internally, we're talking about 400p resolution. So 50% 800p. On the smaller screen, it's less obvious than what I showed you a moment ago, because again, smaller screen uses the entire screen, which is good. Many games get that wrong and just give us Force 16:9. This one is not one of those games, luckily. So yeah, it seems to be just dropping into the 50s when we're doing one of those executions, like that. And depending on the amount of enemies on screen as well. So I'm not entirely sure why they locked it to basically 30 FPS by default. Maybe to cover their asses if you lose performance later on in the game. But again, you will notice that the missing reflections, there are cube maps, which is okay, but nothing like screen space reflections. Especially in a game like this that has so many reflective surfaces. But obviously it's more demanding. So if you want the best performance possible, lock it to 60, like I'm doing here on the Steam Deck's menu. And you should have basically 60 frames with drops into the 50s in certain scenarios. At the beginning of the game, I don't know why I got drops into the 40s with these exact settings. And the beginning of the game is like a train that is moving in a straight line with enemies on top of it. I think this will be the performance mode, I'll call it, because yeah, it's literally what it is. We're sacrificing the resolution significantly, there's no reflections, there's no ambient occlusion, but again, we're playing on a Steam Deck. That should be expected behavior with a new game. Okay, so here we're a little bit more ahead. Here on PC, I drop pretty hard when looking into the distance, but as you can see, it's just a drop into the mid-50s. We're also not fully utilizing the GPU, so we might be memory limited and CPU limited. If you look at the VRAM and the RAM, 5.4 on the VRAM, 10 GB on the RAM. We only have 16 gigs on Steam Deck as a total memory pool. Remember, those 16 gigs are shared as system RAM and video memory. So technically the maximum we can go is 6 gigs on the VRAM and 10 gigs on the system RAM. So yeah, I can drop into the low 50s when we're doing an execution, but there's no control of the game there. So I don't think it's a big deal. Alright, so for the quality mode, I would say, which is 40 FPS for me, I'd rather not play a game like this at 30. I'll explain why in a moment. We do balanced FSR until I think, well, it's disabled if you enable FSR. I disabled the Steam Deck mode to be able to touch all the other settings, and all the other settings are basically at the absolute lowest, excepting ambient occlusion and reflections, which is what's missing. So the game looks a bit better, and we have a bit higher resolution than default. This if you want to tinker around and you don't mind locking it to 40. So the Steam Deck mode should be disabled. I locked it to 40 on the Steam Deck's menu. And as you can see now, we have those screen space reflections coming from the screen. For some of you guys, this might be subtle, but keep that in mind. And this will be a higher resolution. Believe me, this is noticeable, even on the smaller screen. It's a good in-between. And this should give you decent FPS, which in my opinion 40s versus 30s. I mean 30s on a fully full fast-paced action game like this one, I don't think it's a good idea. 40s, well, it seems just like 10 FPS more, is 33% more smoothness versus 30 FPS. So this should give you a good balance in between them. You get better visuals than on the default settings, and you get a higher resolution as well, which is a huge plus. If you don't care about that, just keep it on the default settings. You can even push it up to quality upscaling, which is called prioritized resolution on the Steam Deck mode. You're just missing out on the screen space reflections and on the ambient occlusion, which in my opinion is a big omission, but I'm just annoying when it comes to that. So if you don't care about that and just want a higher resolution without those two effects that I mentioned, you should be fine. The thing is, you're using more resources, but this should give you like 3 hours of battery at 40. It feels pretty damn good. And again, way smoother than 30. If you want to do 30s, that's fine. You can... I mean, the game by default was at 30 FPS. So the developers probably on the Steam Deck intended the game to run at 30, considering it's a portable machine. But this just makes me happy, because yeah, there's a lot of verified games that on day one are ultra performance upscaling or something like that on Steam Deck, or have horrible stuttering. This one has been super stable across the board. Those frame times being a flat graph really makes me super happy to see. Let me skip this for a moment. So as I was saying, it makes me very happy to see this. This is the custom technology from Platinum Games. This is probably the engine being updated after doing Metal Gear Rising Revengeance and Nier Automata. So this is good to see. Runs way better than a UE5 game. You have... While the options menu is pretty lacking, in my opinion, I'm very happy that they put a Steam Deck mode. Again, there's obvious visual sacrifices, but it makes the game run at 60 FPS if you keep the upscaling as is. Just disable dynamic resolution. Doesn't seem to be working particularly great right now. But again, default settings means 30 FPS. Just unlock the frame rate with the menu option, disable dynamic res, lock it to 60. You should have 2.5 to 3 hours of battery. And the other option is to do what I did, disable the Steam Deck mode, put the reflections on low, the ambient occlusion on low instead of disabled, the rest on the lowest, and put balance upscaling. And you should have 40s with some minor drops into the 30s when looking into a distance. But overall, feeling pretty solid. This would be more of a balance. And if you don't mind the lower resolution of performance, which is 400p, you can also use that in this quote-unquote balance mode if you want the extra effects. But I'm very happy with the performance on this one. I just wish there was more options, but the fact that they have an actual good Steam Deck mode makes me very happy. For most people, I would just recommend, again, disable that stupid 30 FPS cap, put the and disable the dynamic resolution, lock it to 60, and you're good to go. Pretty solid, very responsive. Just don't play this at 30 FPS. 40s, okay, I can justify it if you want slightly better graphics. But 30s is just a disservice to this game, in my opinion. But I'm already reading your mind, guys. Some of you are going to ask about frame gen. And there's no frame gen in this game. You can force it using lossless scaling, like I did in some of my previous videos. But this game is so fast-paced that the input lag, I don't think is worth it. And you can already get 6 FPS pretty easily by just using the default settings. So in this particular case, I'm not going to check it with frame generation. But if you want to use it, I mean, you can force it with the Decky plugin for lossless scaling. As of right now, I think playing at 40 with drops when there's an effect like that on screen, that is, again, a moment where you're not in control of the game when doing an execution, or at the very beginning of the game on that train, it's fine. Or, again, just keep it at 60 with the default settings, and you should be good to go. It feels fantastic, looks good on the smaller screen despite the low resolution. And yeah, that's basically it. Thank you guys so much for watching. If you're playing at 40s, I forgot to mention, basically 3 hours of battery, so it's also recommended. Just check it out yourself and see which one suits you best. But yeah, thank you so much for watching, and I'll see ya next time. Bye guys.